Hello and welcome to Safety Matters, another episode on safety which deals with high reliability organizations. So, when we say an organization is highly reliable, which means they have done a lot of homework in the past and they work on a lot of data with which they can predict and ensure safety. Now, to understand what safety is a condition where nobody gets harmed. In order to ensure safety, it has to become a way of life and not a chore that has to be repeatedly performed. Keep enough buffers as you do in your personal life for safety and for others too. What we aim is ultimately a generative safety culture which is on the top of the pyramid, wherein everybody looks out for their safety as a responsible citizen and a worker, and for safety of others. Now, let's look at the high reliability organization concept. If you look at high reliability organizations, there is a book you can find on managing the unexpected, sustained performance in a complex world. So the authors say basically is a breakdown is not a negative situation to be avoided, but a situation of non-obviousness. There are different perspectives to safety. How do you look at safety or an event in safety? Would you like to learn from it, to gather as much data from your experience and experience of others, or wait for another one to happen? This is a ramp of a ship wherein aircrafts take off and land. Now, on this ramp, the criticality is the length. The length of the ramp is limited. And because of this limited ramp, it has to be ensured that it is clear of any foreign objects. Therefore, as a matter of drill, these personnel walk up and down regularly, looking out for small or sharp pieces of foreign objects which could damage the aircraft. Aviation is unforgiving, even worse than sea, for any act of error or violation, because it cannot be undone. We have other high-risk industries such as nuclear power, oil and gas, wherein these concepts of high reliability organization are applied. So reliability is what one can count on for not to fail when it is expected of it to work. So when you expect something to work, you should not go around and fail. That is the basic idea. The definition suggests three questions. What do people count on? What do people expect from the things they count on? In what ways can the things people count on fail? The key word is what and not whom. Systems relate to what. Now, when we look at organizations, there could be lapses or there could be errors and violations. So a lapse could occur on account of three reasons. Someone somewhere didn't anticipate what and how things could go wrong. some deviation was not caught out as soon as it could have been caught, or people didn't dig deep into unexpected events in the unit or systems. All three reasons mean that the system is not robust and mindful as it can be. What things must go right? If we can look at what things can go wrong, we can also look at what things must go right in order for you to ensure safety. What could go wrong? How could things go wrong? What things have gone wrong in the past? And do people call attention to failures once they happen, even if others do not notice that a mistake or a failure has occurred? Or do people hide mistakes and problems? That is essentially the safety culture. What is the safety culture of the organization, and how does it affect people? How does it affect people? Do people update their procedures if they need be? Which means, is the organization responsive to people's requirements? Do people update their procedures? Do leaders actively seek out bad news, or does everybody want the good news or the good picture, and they like to brush the bad events or the negative aspects under the carpet? That is again the safety culture of the organization. You have to come up with data and facts and face them so that you can have a mitigation plan. Unless you have a plan and you inform people, safety cannot be ensured or guaranteed. Do people feel free to talk? What is the reporting culture in the organization? If somebody sees a possible threat or a risk, does the culture of the organization promote that it should be reported as soon as possible to minimize the damage or to curtail? HROs are basically guided on 5 principles. The first one is preoccupation with failure. It is their job to deal with failure. The more the time they spend in dealing with failures, the more they learn, the more data they gather, which can help them prevent future accidents. Need for continuous attention to anomalies that could be symptoms of larger problems in a system. Anomaly cues of evolving failure, which means if you see a drift in a parameter, you can say this, yes, this parameter is likely to fail and needs more attention or some corrective action. Normalizing institutional wariness, doubt as a mindset. So these are kind of qualities, which means you should always be doubting things when you're a safety person. Everything going correct, hunky-dory, things are normal, things are quiet, means there is a failure waiting to happen. So a safety personnel is always looking out, and when things are very quiet, things are not good for a safety perspective. The traits of HROs. Idea is to be safe. So the second part is reluctance to simplify. Simplification is basically for the person who's operating the machine or an aircraft. When you're operating, then you need simple procedures so that your workload is reduced and there is less stress. But from the organization or the safety perspective, they do not need simplification. They need maximum data, and they need the event to be broken down into maximum bits so that they can analyze each and every bit and do a root cause analysis. Where does the problem lie? So unless you break down that event into smaller bits, you won't be able to find out the exact cause. That is why in most of the cases we are addressing the symptom, not the cause. So you need to treat every ski slope as if you're riding on it for the first time. The avalanche doesn't care about what you got away the last time with. Simple thinking: the alarm failed, we should replace it with a new one. But why did the alarm fail? HRO thinking is, what if the alarm's failure was caused due to something deeper? So it's a thinking mindset. When you're operating, you don't want alarms to go off. From an engineering point of view, if an alarm fails, you replace the alarm. But from a safety point of view, why did the alarm fail and what are the consequences of the failure? What if it fails again? What is the probability? That is how a safety personnel thinks on the probability, so as to reduce the threat and the risk and future occurrences. Whereas the engineering control is simply replace. So for every time a human being fails, you cannot have another additional engineering control or a software or a modification. If the problem lies with the human being, you have to correct the human being. So you have to spend time, money, effort, invest in the human being so that the root cause does not create further problems. This is a typical OCC, Operation Control Center, monitoring everything, having a bird's eye view. So the third principle of HRO is sensitivity to operation. Pay close attention to operations. Do not make assumptions and ask questions. These are three basic fundamental questions or traits. Use data to make decisions and track the outcomes. Everybody must have seen this picture of the US Airways which landed in Hudson River. It's the resilience of the human being. What differentiates a human being from other animals or creatures is humans are creative. Spontaneously, they can act upon and in a situation develop new procedures or contingency plans. They are resilient. Even if there are tough situations, difficult situations, they find a way to come back and they always bounce back. So the ability to recognize, absorb and adapt to disruptions. The fourth principle is commitment to resilience. Most systems try to anticipate trouble spots, but the higher reliability organizations also pay close attention to the capability to investigate, learn and act without knowing in advance what they will be called to act upon. Don't let failures disable the organization. The idea is business continuity. Recognize emerging anomalies by keeping an open mind. React appropriately even under unanticipated conditions. Finally, you have a lot of data. How you deal with data? Deference to expertise. So not everybody is an expert in every situation. You can have engineering experts, you can have operational experts, finance experts, you can have the CEO. But a policy holder or the CEO will ultimately have to take advice from somebody. So it has to be deferred to experts. For the Columbia launch, space shuttle launch, the person sitting on top has to take advice, because these are very high risk maneuvers or launches. So the experts have to advise them. So a panel of experts will give a go ahead that this is the time we can go. That is when, considering other parameters, the head of the organization gives a go ahead, a thumbs up. Men who can immediately sense the potential problem can indeed make a quick decision to alleviate the problem or effectively decouple some of the technology, reducing the consequences of errors in decision making. So when you have to take decisions, the fastest way is ask the expert. Do not try to be an expert. The expert is a person with hands-on knowledge of operations at that point of failure. Give your experts access to upward reporting, and leaders must listen to those experts regardless of seniority. So when it comes to expertise, there could be a junior person with more knowledge in that field. So you have to give him due regard for the knowledge and expertise. It is not about seniority always. You would have seen this picture. This is the Bhopal gas tragedy. I'll shift myself a bit. Now, the tragic event happened in 1984, December the 2nd. While the city of Bhopal was sleeping, the deadly gas leaked from a factory which was closed down, supposed to be shut. How did this leak, and why didn't people notice it, which caused death, blindness and other medical issues for thousands of people? So this is kind of a chain which we can look at. So in a typical factory, you have the methyl isocyanate MIC stored in cylinders, which is the circled one, E610. So there were certain cues that there was a leak, there was smell. So since the factory had been shut down for months, there was a different perspective. The pressure, there was some rumbling and change of pressure in the gauges. That is another cue. So smell, pressure and rumbling, these were the cues which the people there could see. Now you have a vent gas scrubber. The leaking gas could have been detoxified by the scrubber. But what happened? Since the factory was shut, the scrubber was also off. See, when things go wrong, everything is against you. Under normal situation, for the safety, there is a water curtain, so that in case there is a leak, you can have a spray. So, but that was not high enough to reach the gas. Then you have a flare tower. The tower is designed to burn off gas, but a connecting pipe had been removed for maintenance since the factory was shut. These safety features weren't working. Firstly, you don't see the cues. The cues like smell, people could smell, but they said if the factory is shut, then factory is shut. How can you have smell? It could be something else. And the refrigeration system, Freon system to cool the liquid, was also shut down in June 1984 to save money, and the Freon shipped to other plants. So if you see the pattern, alertness, awareness, perception, conception, so these patterns were missing. The perception without conception is blind. If you perceive something, you get smell, but you cannot figure out what could be it due to, which means you can't conceive of a possible problem. If you don't have knowledge or you can't think, cognition, then there's no point, you're blind. Conception without perception is empty. It is the opposite of that. The unexpected can escalate either when significant cues go unnoticed because there are no concepts to select them, problem of blindness, or when the concepts that people deploy have no connection to particulars, problem of emptiness. To conclude, the organization culture is very important because that sets the tone, the language, how people behave, how people work, what people are expected to do. Are you supposed to report, or are you supposed to keep quiet? Are you supposed to tell your superiors? How comfortable are you talking to your superiors that things are going wrong? So that is the organization culture. Mindful organizations, actions basically turn circumstances into a situation that is comprehensible and that serves as a springboard for action. There are the actions of turning flux into circumstances, turning circumstances into comprehensible situations, and turning comprehensible situation in a direction and intention, and turning those intentions into their realization. So these organizations are mindful. Mindful means they're aware of the present and the future need. Like we say, know thyself. You should know your limitations. Unless you know your limitations, you will not know how much you can push before you break. So therefore, you should know the circumstances you are in. You should comprehend them. You should know what is your limit and how do you realize your goals. It is tempting to go through that sequence mindlessly, but there are alternatives, some of them right in front of you. So high reliability organizations working on 5 principles. Every person needs, or an organization needs, to inculcate these 5 principles so as to be effective. We have to be proactive in safety, because safety is about predicting what's going to happen next. So unless you have data, unless you look for data, unless you analyze things, investigate very minutely in terms of root cause analysis, you have experts or knowledgeable people, and you are sensitive to your operations. So these 5 principles basically equip a safety personnel to predict an event. So when things are very quiet, it's like a duck swimming in the water or a swan. You can see the bird very peaceful, but under the water she's pedaling very fast. So there's a lot of work going on in safety, but when things are quiet, these people are hard at work, so that when things become busy, nothing big happens. You're always on the ball and never have your sight away from your targets. Thank you very much for listening in. My name is Amit, and I'm the founder of Safety Matters, which is the NGO working towards safety.